This is Matt from Ray Allen.
And this is the Why So Serious podcast, brought to you by Ray Allen Manufacturing, where we talk about American manufacturing and the ups and downs of making great gear. Today, we have Lee from Modern Icon, where we call frenemies.
Yes. Hey, what's up?
That was the worst intro, but that might have been the best intro, but worst intro. All right, so we got Lee, Modern Icon. We like to call ourselves frenemies.
Yes.
Because we both make dog gear in the same industry.
Back. Yeah.
And we do go way back. And I would like to start this with the story of how I met you.
2019.
Yeah. And we first conference that we were both at.
Yeah.
And I remember walking up, and you have that collar that has the leather wrap and nylon on the outside. And I looked right at you, and I was like, if I was a shitbag, I would have stolen that a long time ago, because that thing's fucking beautiful.
If I was an asshole, we'd be making it.
No, just letting you know, because it's very pretty. Nicely done. That thing probably takes way too long.
Yes, it does.
We can actually afford to build that.
Right.
But it is really cool, and we appreciate the effort that you put in.
And it's not like I it, but we're not going to be making that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was our first interaction.
That's
We
so
became
funny. It's true.
pretty quick friends after that.
Yeah.
So Modern Icon. What's the origin?
So I guess I'd grown up a strange kid, in that I made my grandmother's teach me how to sew when I was like 13. And so I'd always did alterations on my own clothes and like backpacking and stuff. I would make alterations to gear that I thought didn't really work well. And then my climbing background allowed me to get kind of a deep dive into the manufacturing of like climbing specific gear. So like things that had a life safety application rating associated with it had to be stitched a certain way. And so I geek out on that just so that I could explain it to clients. It'd be like, hey, you can trust this belay loop because it's rated to 11 kilonewtons, and this is what a kilonewton is, and like the reasons why is because of the stitch patterns. And it's like I had to learn how to make the gear in order to be able to sell the safety of it to the clients that I was using, that we were taking out, mostly just civilians at the time. But that was like 20 something years of experience doing that. And then saw the gear when I was a police officer working for Greenville City in South Carolina. They were using like really shitty like Harbor Freight webbing that was like dry rotting.
You can buy webbing from Harbor Freight. Is that a thing?
You shouldn't be able to.
I didn't know that.
I mean, the shit's like coming apart in your hand.
Yeah.
Starts crumbling. It
literally it's like flaking off. So I'm like seeing the canine handler signed our platoon racking his gear, and I'm like, is that what you're using? Because I was out last night and that dog was biting the guy, and it seemed really scary, and I don't want to be near it if that's really the only thing between me. Right. So if I can make you a better leash than that, would you be interested in using it? And so I went and got climbing spec webbing and did a little, because I was doing some climbing training with SOCOM at the time. And so there's some methodologies they use. So one of them is called PACE, and it's like primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. So the best example of it would be like a tourniquet. So primary is obviously a commercially manufactured tourniquet. Alternate is going to be like a cravat and a windlass, so you're still getting the compression. Contingency would be just the cravat where you're just tying it off and hoping that that's going to hold pressure. And then emergency would be like you're putting your knee in the guy's femoral and you're returning fire. And so that's their methodology. Everything has to kind of adhere to that. So I just make a leash, but I'm going to do some modifications to it to make it unique. I'll use bar tacks instead of straight stitching, which is funny because when I was doing it, really there's not a lot of people that were using bar tacks at the time. And so all the department handlers were like, we can't use that. It's got to be a box X stitch. And I'm like trying to explain to them the stitch strength and like how you can calculate it out. And, they're like, no. So I literally had to put my first leashes, I had to put a decorative box X stitch above the bar tack. So they would be like, oh yeah, we can trust that now. But I just added a clipping point. Like a daisy chain clipping point to the end. So if the snap failed, they could clip a carabiner to it. And then there's some other things you can turn into a harness, and like there's shit that you can do with like nobody's really used it for. But like I was like, why not? Right? It's already mil spec webbing. Right. We're already using it for like anchor straps and stuff. I'm gonna do it. So so that's kind of how it started, and everything kind of snowballed from there.
Okay.
So how long have you been making gear full time then?
So I started in 2012 and only sold through word of mouth for the first like 2 to 3 years. So 12, 13, 14, 15, I started having like an e-commerce thingy. Really just because I was like just getting like, I was literally just transporting the stuff in my patrol car. I was always signing myself out It was on my time, and it was when I was on lunch break or dinner break. But I would have it in the back of my car.
Don't believe a fucking word.
I would have it in the back of my car because everybody that I was selling to I worked with them. So it's like, you know.
You were a police canine gear drug dealer.
Yeah, that's how it was. We would literally meet up in the
back of
parking
the
lot.
truck and it'd be like,
and like,
So, but it's, you know,
yeah.
well, and then as it started expanding,
Clips.
like we'd be like Greenville County, so Greenville City, Greenville County, and then Anderson County. So like other departments would start buying because they'd all train together. They'd see the stuff, and so we'd have guys that would drive into the city limits and meet them at a parking lot, literally pop the trunk,
clock
and,
out. Pop
yeah,
the
clock
trunk.
out, pop out.
Trunk.
Yeah.
Pop the trunk, yeah.
So,
Go
but
to
yeah,
dinner.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I would skip dinner and just do that. But yeah, so that was kind of how it started. But yeah, so that was the first 3-4 years were just like that. An Instagram account was my first thing, which we really started to like experience any kind of growth with, and it was my personal Instagram account, which is kind of funny because I've gone back and looked and it's like 10 leashes on the back of a chair in my basement, and it's got like soft lighting and it's like all hipster-esque. And I'm like, oh, that was some.
Yeah, you
those
put
are
that
some
patina lighting
Those
on
are
it?
some great times. I was rushing through to try to get a handful of leads out, and like
Right.
it was in my basement. I'm sewing in my underwear. That was like the best. So
Sewing in my underwear.
but yeah, so we had an Instagram account, and then that kind of led to having a website, which is funny because then that led to my business partner, Josh, which was my old beat partner. We used to work the streets together, Mean Streets of Greenville. It's a great place to visit, actually. We highly recommend it. But so he
Official
was
spokesman for Green.
yeah, I love the city. But he was designing them. He was like, I'll design your website because your website is garbage, because I really just have like the GoDaddy.com
Right.
URL free whatever
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
And so that was when I really started thinking of it as like a actual business. You know, it wasn't just a hobby, because now it's like, okay, we had the branding, we had the logo, but now I have a website, e-commerce platform. I'm still working out of 161 square feet in my basement, so it was still like, you know, really a hobby. It was just kind of taking off, and that was at 2015, 2016 when it really went, or I could say it went like full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 8 years you've been basically full time.
Yeah, yeah.
7, 8 years, whatever
Yeah.
the number is. Nice. That's a pretty good run.
Yeah.
I mean, you've survived for 7 or 8 years.
I would say we've only survived because we're really stubborn. Not
Because we're really
not because things have gone great. We're both of us are very stubborn individuals, and so once we start doing something, we have a hard time stopping. So yeah.
Has he been full time that whole time too?
20. So he came on 2017, 2018.
Okay,
So
like 6
just
years.
about yeah. So yeah, I'd it just took off to where I couldn't keep up with the orders because I was sewing between shifts, and I was seeing my family for like 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not a way to live. Like, this is supposed to be fun, and I'm like crying in my basement. You know, like,
in my underwear.
like in my underwear.
basement.
I didn't want to say that.
Right,
That makes
just-
it worse.
just burning
I'm just
knives.
like breaking needles and like bleeding all over the products and stuff as I'm trying to snip and melt the ends of stuff with no fingerprints. So it was just
Solid.
It just went to the point. It was like Point Break, and I was like, all right, this is going to either be like a lot of fun, I'm going to do this thing full time, or I just need to like dial it back and just say, hey, my turnaround times are 7 months. Get your orders in, our books are closed, and leave it a hobby.
Right.
But I felt like we had enough traction, and it seemed like I was getting enough feedback that it felt like what we were doing was actually needed within the industry.
Right.
Because I think that was one of the things that we help do, is help disrupt the industry, which is another thing you guys are always doing, like basically making everybody so we didn't run for the money. Huh?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So we didn't really need you.
Yeah. But I mean, that was the big thing, is like up until then, really there wasn't anyone besides like special ops that were getting gear that was really designed. Designed that was going to be innovative and unique, because they were getting it made for all the electronics and shit that they put on their dogs. But
yeah, and I will say one of the things that, going back to your disruption stuff, I mean, I think you're right. I think it's good when you've got some people in that are coming up with new stuff, because it's like you're trying to stay on the front side of that and trying to keep up with, oh god, we got to turn this out. Obviously, we missed the boat on a product this year. It's really disappointing that they beat us on, that we were really excited about.
that was the creepiest thing.
that was
like when Matt says we're frenemies, we've had a couple really interesting moments. The most interesting moment, I have to say, was the phone call where his girlfriend's yelling in the background, where he wanted to prove that he knew me. I don't know which one this was, but they had my gear in their like at their house, like a collar or something, and you were like, "You don't remember this?"
I don't.
It's good. It's,
I remember when the Swedish dudes came over.
oh, that was funny
And I
too.
like FaceTimed you, and I was like,
I actually got to
oh,
meet
okay,
them
so he
in-
has your gear.
Yeah, I
That's
got to
cool.
meet them in a
And
training
he's,
then.
yeah, he's at Ray Allen,
Yeah.
and he like pulls out his case and he goes, I'm sorry.
Like,
And I was like, it's
please
fine,
don't
we're
judge.
friends. So
Yeah,
I
we're actually cool.
FaceTimed
We're
him.
actually- yeah.
And I was like, he's got your gear, and I was like, he's at my place, but it's
Like,
fine.
we're actually- So,
He
but yeah,
spent his money with us.
the scariest thing is that that collar, so it's a modular collar,
Yeah.
and you're like, no.
Oh god.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
right.
and
when I
like
saw
come back and show me this picture, and I was like, no,
It's the exact same thing.
like
it's-
how are we both thinking the exact same thing? It's a
Yeah.
little creepy, but we're definitely vibing on the same frequency.
yeah. Anyway, you know, so
Yeah.
we were not fast enough.
yeah. Right, which
back-
is a good lesson.
Yeah. No.
You know,
I mean, yeah,
like,
which-
holding on to stuff sometimes isn't the best.
the problem is I don't know how you know. Sometimes it's you got to hold on to it because you don't have the production
Right.
capacity.
No, that's what I
which
mean.
is
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is what the battle we were in is we didn't we had it parked it and we're like
Yeah.
oh 3 months from now we're gonna turn this thing
This
loose
is-
and then we're like 3 days from now we're like fuck
Yeah. Yeah.
we are not turning this loose in 3 months because somebody like made it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is always like
Such a good idea.
Yeah.
So cool. So
well, it's and like the funny part about it is like that entire place fucking hurt me.
oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
I saw it and I went fuck, and you were like and I just
don't know
pulled
what's
out my
happening.
phone
I'm like,
and
I
I
don't
went
know
like
what's
this.
happening. Like I
Yeah.
think he's happy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not. Like, you know,
This is the way out. No, let's just tell you, like, next week, like, everything we've been working on that's about to happen in the next, like, 3 weeks, we
Right.
have to change quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
We're going
It
to
was
move
not
this
a
up.
good-
We're going to move this back. Oh, my gosh.
obscenities.
Yeah, I was
Sometimes
like,
percentage
and then I remember going over to the
positive.
booth and Matt, you were like talking to someone. I was like, get the fuck over here. And he's like, okay, what's the fire? Oh,
Oh, it's a fire.
yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
it's a real.
Shit burning on
not-
it.
yeah.
This is a
He's not being
problem.
dramatic.
But it was funny because, I mean, even though for us it was a shitter, right?
Sure.
Like, but at the same time, it was still like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because it's been so long that, that you're trying to innovate, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to make cool stuff and
Yeah.
you're trying to do cool things. And then you have like, you don't have anybody to bounce that off
Yeah.
of. I have him,
Yeah.
right? But we're together in this.
Sure.
So it's like the
Wait a minute. Hold on. It's like he just scooted his chair. Like,
Matt,
nope,
baby.
Yeah.
It's a little worse.
It's
But they
actually
got
called
Ron on the same
Wilkenhead.
text. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really cool to have like that person, not only in the industry, but like, I mean, going back to like the leather collar, right?
Yeah.
Like I loved leather, on a dog, and I always loved like how it kind of broke in and everything like that, but I always wanted to be able to put a patch on it.
Yeah.
And like I remember like afterwards, after it was probably a year or two, but I was just talking to you and I was like, hey, this is the idea that I came up with a leather with nylon
Yeah.
wrapped around it. Like, what do you think? And do you think it has anything to do with yours? Because I do not want to be even associated with thinking that like we copied
you're not
you.
stole it.
Yeah. And you looked at it and you were like, and we were just FaceTiming and I was going real slow around it. And you're like, dude, that thing looks awesome.
Badass.
Like, yeah. And then you're like, yeah, that's totally your version of it. Like,
Yeah. Totally unique.
yeah, and like that's what was really cool
Yeah.
about that because, it was just like, oh, and then we can put out something also. Like, and yes, it's close or it's in the same genre or whatever, but it's not this like, oh my God, he stole it,
Yeah.
like
Well, and I think that's the way to push innovation within the industry, which is
Right.
kind of the thing. So, like, and these are all the conversations we've had kind of offline is about like how we get influences from like design ideas and stuff from other industries that are not directly connected, and that you have to be looking out in order to be able to stay fresh and to keep things moving. Because you can't, if there is no innovation, you're just making the same thing over and over again. fabric in a different color or a different dimension or a different loadout, then you're not really benefiting anybody.
Right.
But if you can make something truly unique,
Yeah.
that is pulling on things that haven't been brought into, then
or
that's-
they've got a piece of technology, or
Yeah.
there's a piece of material, or there's hardware where you're just
Yeah.
that's coming over here,
Yeah.
again, outside of the canine industry, and all of a sudden you're like, oh,
that might
we need to
actually
grab
work
that.
for
We
you.
need
Yeah.
to figure this out because this is kind of cool, and they may have some application for us, or
Yeah.
Right.
or how do we use this, or
Yeah, it's really fun.
going back to the number of things everybody, we're all cutting with lasers now, but
Yeah.
Right, right.
like that 3 years ago that didn't
Well, and
exist.
the funniest thing about the laser cutting stuff is with the modular collar, because part of it's using 12-ply Tegris, is like how everybody thinks that Tegris is like new and cool and
Right.
like,
Yeah,
amazing.
and just like look at the gun
Have no
industry.
idea. Well, and
Like-
that's who's pushing it,
Yeah.
is being new and cool, and really it's like 20 years old and
Yeah.
was designed for kayaks.
yeah,
Right.
right,
Right,
100%.
And that was their version of like carbon fiber then.
Yeah.
Right. It was going to be
Yeah.
batteries that take more of a beating and when you're going down creeks and stuff.
And
So
everybody's like, oh, you can laser cut this?
Yeah,
What?
right. You're like,
You
right.
know, like
Game
that's where
on.
you're just
Yeah,
like,
game on.
oh, we can make Molly out of this. Like, this is wild.
Look at all the fun things we can do. with
Yeah,
this.
100%. And we don't have to sew any of it. We
Yeah.
can just design it on a computer. This is fucking cool.
So, but that like idea of innovating without copying to me, and this is, I guess I am a bit of an asshole when it comes to that kind of thing. Like I have high level respect for you guys because you guys aren't copying, and it's kind of flattering to be copied. You guys have a lot of people knocking your stuff off. We have a lot of folks that are knocking our stuff off. It's nice to kind of be in that same boat
Some days
together.
we're really tired of being flattered.
But I think that to me is the thing that I've had a massive amount of respect for you guys for. And two, it's like, okay, you guys have been around pre you guys existing. So like you guys have been around for generations now.
Yeah,
So the thing is like, okay, you can't not I can't be an up and coming person within this industry and not pay respect to a brand that's lasted decades if I also would like to last for decades. If I'm just in it because no offense people that are retired military, but like there's the number of folks who are retired cops, retired military, not that they shouldn't do it. I do fully support and encourage them to do it.
100%.
But like they're just
were also
randomly
one of them, too.
they're just but like if you're going to bring something to the table, that's great. If you're not, then get a job working with somebody who already is. Don't just come out because you need to make something different and then you end up dumbing something down or making a shitty product just so that you could be making a product. Just do training or work for another company that's already doing it great and bring what you have to the table and actually help benefit.
Well, that's it. We were just actually talking to Ben Rader.
That's a
earlier,
great
and that's it was interesting talking about where the collar ideas came from, and him not even realizing that anything similar existed, which is kind of funny to us, because obviously we've been around long enough that we've seen similar things.
Yeah.
And he was like, we just had to reduce the noise because the chain collars were making when we were sneaking around, and and he's like, so I started making this collar, and then people wanted it, But it's just it's interesting when you look at that and you look at people that come from a place where it's like, oh, here's a hole, let's fill that hole. Let's explain how that hole's filled and why, what it does, and what its purpose is, and
because explaining it like he did was almost like it was that was like, oh, that makes way more sense to me.
It's for why it was done,
on
right?
the why
100%.
why he did it that way, and
you're like, oh, that's pretty smart. I don't have that problem. That's not an issue for me.
I think and the nice thing is like Ben's a good example of this, right? Like where Ben was like we talk about this in his podcast, but he shows me the ADC, and I was like, oh yeah, a dominant dog collar. He goes, holy shit, it's a brilliant name. And I was like, yeah,
that's because
it's already there, And he was like, oh shit, but he didn't go. He was like, oh, but like, and then he didn't get discouraged. Kind of looked at it. He was like, okay, well, this is what makes mine different, and this is why I like it. And then I'm just gonna keep going. And I was like, absolutely, dude, have fun. I wasn't saying don't do it, and now it's like progressed to something that like everybody's using and everybody wants and everybody wants to put on their dog. And that's the funny part to me is, like what you're saying, you don't have to be like an innovator to innovate. Like he didn't invent that, but he was like, oh, but this is my why. And that was innovative. And just like what you were saying, like, you just come out and go, well, Modern Icon makes a collar, so I'm going to make a collar too. And it's like, okay, like that's
Or I
fine.
have a
But like,
sewing machine, or my
Right.
friend has a sewing machine.
I mean, that's
Right.
usually,
Or I live close to an Amish guy.
Right.
Therefore, I can make, therefore we can buy leather collars. Therefore, we should have.
Well, and I think too, being a designer, I think is a genetic predisposition. I don't think you can I don't think you can wake up one day and all of a sudden be a designer. I think you've always had to see things that way.
Interesting.
And so I think a lot of the guys, because there's another side of it too. It's like, all right, there's an importance to being able to gather end user feedback, but it doesn't make the end user a specialist in that field. And even if you are a subject matter expert in that field, you're that from one perspective. And so it takes a gathering and a collecting of a breadth. That's one of the things that I was able to do, because I'm kind of weird in that way, is take feedback from a lot of different people and hear all of their complaints of things that don't do this or don't do that, and weed through the bullshit to come up with one kind of unified concept that they all think was made exactly for them, even though it wasn't just like any one of them would have wanted me to make it. And I think that's the design mind, and that's the way that you're able to think and see the world, is you can see through the end user trying to tell you the complaints that they have, and have that concept floating around your head of what actually would solve it, not what they're saying.
Right. Yeah.
But you can fix the problem.
Sure,
they are correct on the problem.
Because they don't. Yeah, maybe because they don't know what hardware's out there, or what what materials are out there. What the possibilities are. I will say the one thing, like, it took me a long time in my life to figure out that I was a maker. Like, that's what I get fulfillment out of, is taking something start to finish, and I may get bored with it after I take it start to finish, but like making shit is my thing, right? Like I enjoy that. I don't know whether that's designed technically, but like I don't care if it's cabinets. Like I can build cabinets. I can sew stuff together. I could weld stuff. I don't really care. I mean, I can anything. At the end of the day, I've got something that I can see. I'm like, oh, yeah, look at me, I'm big.
Yeah, that's actually really funny, because we all have 3 different reasons.
Yeah.
So like mine, because I'm an egotistical asshole. No, but like you make the thing, right? And but like you have the make of, like, I can do the lathe stuff, I can weld, I can whatever, right? And then with you were talking about, like, you're solving problems, right? Where, like, with me, I just want to build shit I want, and then I figure out a way to make it for everybody else.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is. And then the other thing that I've started enjoying more in the last probably decade or so is, can somebody else make it? Like, while I'm building it, like, can the shop do this?
Yeah.
Like, is it just me? Like, if I'm about to take 8 hours to make whatever this is, and it really needs to be made in 60 minutes for anybody to be able to buy it.
Really, it's going to be 16 hours of someone's time, probably.
Like, is that the math that's going to work? Right. Is that what's going to happen? So, okay, what do I need to make this work so that it still carries the key features through to the end?
Yeah.
And it's
I have a really hard time with that.
So
it's cool to hear me say, oh my gosh, I personally made that.
Right.
And that's like, great. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, no. Don't celebrate that. Like, that means I can only make a literal handful of these things. And I don't want it to be a collector's item. Like, I want everybody to have it. Like, I don't.
It should not be harnessed under glass.
Unit 1 of 10 for this year. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do.
This is not my goal.
Like we were talking about earlier, it's like that's just like a funny thing that happens, because like, and the fun part for me is people will be like, oh, like, they always like to call me Ray Allen, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what's up, Ray Allen? And I'm like,
sorry. I'm like, what? Why would people call you Ray Allen?
He's the face of
No. But I mean, like, it's pretty cool, like, to have that team that can do that, and I give a lot of credit to especially our shop manager. Like that dude is
he's a machine,
100%, and it's needed, because I couldn't do it. Like
he does a lot of the heavy lifting.
That's 100%. And he's behind
make production happen.
He's behind. He's the behind the curtain. He's like the only person where he's like, hey, like, this happened, and I'm like, fuck, I let him down. I will see that through next time. Sorry.
We'll take that to the end.
Yeah. Because I hand it off and I'm like, hey, and then I'm like, on to the next cool thing that I have in my head. And so
he's like, oh, no.
Whoa.
We haven't even fit. Yeah.
Come back.
We need to go to hit print. Okay. We haven't got to the point of being able to hit print.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's and it's funny, like, knowing the differences, and that was one of the things we were going to ask was, like, struggles that you see.
Yeah.
And we have talked about that probably in depth a bunch, especially with what you're dealing with, where, like, you have this, like, weird conundrum of, yeah, I am so proud of every one of these collars because I put stitches through every single one of them for you, and that also sucks so much. Like,
Well, I mean, that was it's a very bad business model. Ours is, like, right from the very beginning. Like, because it was a hobby, I didn't actually have to make any money.
Right.
And so my thing was, okay, like, I want to be able to make the highest quality product with the highest quality materials with no consideration for the complexity of the design. And so, like, what would that look like if there were truly no constraints on an item?
Right.
Okay, well, it needs to do this. Okay, well, then here's the item. And so I've been pumping these things out of my basement.
Right.
Not having any clue that one day I would need to produce them in mass.
We're not having any clue that they would need to be $900 each.
$1,200 for a harness. But we can only charge the cap for the industry is this. And it's
Right.
like, well, shit, we got more in materials
Right.
in this thing than that.
Right.
And so it's not. I would say we're not scalable. So if anybody's interested, it's not a great idea to do it that way. But part of it was because of the demographic that I was making for. So, like, as a law enforcement officer, I wanted to make it for police officers, and they, no offense, are like one of the poorest demographics in the dog world because sporting dog people, it's a hobby, so they probably have something else bringing the money in. And then SOCOM guys and military folks, it's just a government contract, so they're paying whatever they're going to pay for it, depending on who you know and if you've kissed a cousin or a neighbor. Or, I don't know.
Well, whether they need it.
Yeah, but
if
they're going to
they've got a
pay
need
this.
for it,
You can upcharge it then, right? So having it making it for police officers that at the time really couldn't afford gear, and the gear that was available wasn't that expensive. And I'm like, listen, I can't. I would call them and ask them, hey, what are you guys paying for a collar? Okay, well, I can't make it for that. It's like literally the cost of my materials.
Right.
But, like, could you pay this?
Right.
And, like, upped it like that, and just basically that was my pricing structure in the very beginning, which, again, had nothing to do with, I didn't have a way to calculate out. I didn't know what a profit margin was.
Right.
So, and then we're kind of,
I don't know how many labor hours
like,
I've
what is
got in
this?
this.
Right. Yeah. This is just, but
How
it's
much
almost
do you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Can you throw $2 more in so that I can, like, buy a Coke or something?
Right.
So, and then putting all that money back into the business is what helped grow it. It's just, it was never really, from the beginning, it wasn't a scalable model. And so now we're through the struggle of trying to figure out.
It sounds like from the beginning it wasn't a business.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't your idea. You were just passionate,
passion.
And turning that into a business it sounds like,
That's
like
the
the design part's fucking easy.
Yeah.
You're like,
that's the part they just, it's like, is even though we've been around and I've been designing gear and selling it technically since 2012, like, we aren't at a point yet still where we really can grow it exponentially because of the difficulty in making the things that we're making. So it is still really just like having a prototyping and custom shop is essentially
it's your job.
It's not like a full manufacturing facility.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're going to have to try to crack. But just knowing that we've been able to get the gear out and get as much of it out, and then also too, which has been really weird, is the international kind of influence we've had, which was strange. But, like, we've hit these markets in these other countries that we're like, how did you, in Australia, in the UK, in France and stuff, and like trying to track the breadcrumbs of how this person got this thing that then showed this to this person, and now that entire unit's buying the gear. So it's cool to watch it grow like that. But then, at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if that's happening, then how are we able to produce to that standard at that quantity? And that's
oh shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. We're in that
Yeah.
oh shit stage, I would say, right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the nice part, where with me, coming in, right? So this is my 10th year, and I've never had to deal with that well. Being able to have a presence that you have with also going through those woes is pretty cool.
How many people do you have in the shop now?
Should we say that on air? There's just 7 of us.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean,
We're like,
That's great.
it's pretty small, and that's including me and my business partner. Jeff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And I'm still in the shop sewing every day.
Yeah.
I try to allot myself a few days a week to do design and prototyping. So I have a little studio to do that in now. But yeah, it's
So is the studio walled off from the rest?
the studio is literally in a different location. I had to be, because if it wasn't, like, it's walking distance, but like if it wasn't, then I would never get anything done.
Okay. So is it machines in it too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like its own little. It's 1,000 square foot setup, so it's just its own little thing. You got a laser and everything in there, and
Okay.
I just
how
do
big's
my
your
tweaking there.
your laser?
It's the largest production laser you can get.
In the 1,000 square foot?
Yeah, we had to cut a wall down to get it in.
To get it in. So how big is
Josh messed it up and got a laser too big. I think it's got like a 90 by 55 inch field.
Okay. Is it a closed stack? It's open.
Yeah,
Okay. Open with a
don't recommend it. It's great because you can do massive runs.
Table. Yeah. Is that the laser you guys are
That's
for the whole shop?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought you wanted the shop.
No,
I was
listen,
like,
if
why'd you
I-
put the big one in there?
if I-
I was like, do the small one for your prototyping.
I don't have that kind of money. If I had that kind of money,
No.
then I would be very. I probably wouldn't be as terrified.
It's terrifying. No, I just I've often thought about getting a like a 40 by
Yeah.
40 by some 42 by 36
Yeah.
just to whack stuff up for myself.
Well, that's what I want. I want to get it anyways. Now we're spitballing of
Yeah,
dreams.
that's-
But like, I would like to have a little space in my house too, though. But it's like you have a barn, don't you?
I have
like-
a lot of machines.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say that's.
yeah.
I don't need anything that
have them
big.
A little bit everywhere.
I don't need
so
anything that big, but I would like to have
Uh-huh.
a handful of stuff at the house so I can really like go back to sewing my underwear because that was a lot of fun.
It's funny how much you miss it. Like because
Well,
you're
because you
talking
have an
about
idea or
before.
whatever, and you just go
Right.
down. And you have 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm just gonna go bang some stuff out. And,
Right.
Just for the record, I've never sewn my underwear, and I just
I haven't.
Like, why would you?
I only are at the shop.
just
so.
saying. I just
I guess you're sewing
Like,
shop. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
I was only sewing in my underwear in my basement. So if you have any of the early products that we made, they're extra special.
visualize that.
Yeah,
right?
visualize
Extra
that.
special.
Just visualize that.
Just visualize from the waist down.
All right. So, where do you want to take Modern Icon?
That's a great question. I could not tell you. I think that the biggest thing for me is continuing to innovate. So I think that's it. Just continuing to try to figure out what that next thing is that really nobody's done. Because that was part of the thing is I don't want to do anything that someone else is doing unless I can do it better or different.
Yeah.
Because
It's our rule too.
yeah, because I would rather point them in literally have
Or I'd
point them in
rather
your
buy it
direction
from
or
them
something.
myself.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that all the time. People are
Makes-
like, why don't you make it? That's because I can go buy it from somebody else and they do
They've-
it pretty
they've
well. Like,
figured it out and,
and
they've
it's
done it. Yeah.
right, and it's gonna suck for me to figure it out. So
Right.
in the world when I just buy
Yeah,
it,
Well, and that keeps for me, that keeps the energy, the creative energy flowing in the right direction, in my opinion, too. Because it's
Yeah.
like I don't want to do the things everybody else has already done.
yeah.
I want to find out what no one else has, because that's the stuff that's more interesting to me, and also too, I think that's the stuff that push everybody else forward.
Absolutely.
So trying to find those like weird places, which again like keeps me into some strange things. Like I think you like fashion too, but like I geek out on like design, like interior design, fashion, architecture, like all that stuff kind of helps me to stay out of the canine box. I think that's the part that gets nepotistic and weird and inbred, is that like everybody who's ever done anything or touched a dog is making their stuff, which again, no offense to people, I was one of those people in my basement that started out, from scratch, but like it's just such a saturated space then that everything turns into white noise, and to stand out from that crowd, you really do have to do something unique and different. There has to be something interesting for it to stand out.
Or you're just a commodity.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of blend into the rest of the crowd, and what's going to be around in 5-10 years is probably none of it.
Well, the issue is it then becomes a marketing battle.
Yeah.
If it's commodity, it becomes a marketing battle, and then the next question is, do you have enough money to fight the war?
Yeah.
Right. And who do you fight with at that point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if
who are you
you're
actually
making,
going after?
well, I mean, if you're just making leather leashes that are, or leather collars or sort of basic harness stuff, like you're going to go fight with Coastal Pet or Weaver.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, dude, they can
Knock
drag you
yourself
underwater
out.
for the next 50 years. and
Right.
they won't
They've
even
got a
notice,
few
right?
money.
Yeah, I mean, like it just those guys. I mean, like Coastal Pet's the largest consumer of nylon in the world.
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
just there's 5, 6, 700 operators there. I don't even know. It's huge. It's like over
Acres.
acres. Yeah, acres under roof. And, and it's a machine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Pumping it out.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's fast. It's so smartly run. Like they just do all kinds of cool stuff. So, like, how what what do you do with that? Or like Weaver's very similar. Weaver does a lot of really nice work, good work. They do good leather work, and like you can't fight that battle.
Right.
And growing, being able to grow against that is tough if you don't have something interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's also that we are selling to normal people, and
Like
they look at your collar, my collar, your collar, whatever, and they have to be able to go, they has to be able to stick out and be like,
Has to
this
be
is
a
the
why.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be a why.
Yeah, this is the why I'm doing it, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And that's, that's a very important thing if you're making something, and you're trying to sell it, that's got to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's got to be a very important part of it.
Yeah.
But, so I was going to ask you some random interesting questions
Okay.
to see what your answers are here.
Okay.
How do you like your steak?
Rare.
Blue rare or
Bloody?
just rare?
Nah, I don't know about blue rare. Just rare.
Okay, rare's good. What kind of music do you like?
Weird stuff. If I'm sewing, a lot of techno.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I like a little classical if I'm being kind of contemplative. I like the sound of people banging like metal together and like weird, just kind of like ambient stuff too. Kind of puts me in like
That's ambient.
puts me in a weird zone. Well, not like there's a guy in Pennsylvania who had a barn and he just had a bunch of metal sculptures and he'd go around like bang. They were all like tuned, so that was pretty cool. So outside of Philadelphia, so weird stuff. Some like 1920s recordings of street sounds and stuff. Just your average listening music.
yeah, no, that's weird. That's, yeah, I gotta say it. Like,
I was thinking Chris Stapleton, but that's fine.
By the way, is that your only?
And what's your favorite movie?
Because
I have a favorite movie. I like the John Wick series.
John Wick series.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
we appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Not telling you why we appreciate that. Just saying that we appreciate that.
Anyway, that's the what? No, I'm kidding. All right. So, Lee, is there anything else you want to say to us at Ray Allen or anything like that?
Thank you.
I didn't just read that from my phone. I swear.
No. I just I enjoy the friendly relationship we have, and still to this day, anytime we're like talking to people and anybody says anything about Ray Allen, we're like, oh yeah, we love it. Like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Like, we're like, no, we're like legit frenemies. Like, we actually have each other's phone numbers and
Yeah.
talk. So
Yeah,
like this is
good.
Well, I think, that's actually a good last point, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, I think a lot of people just assume that if they have a modern icon harness, they can't like Ray Allen.
Yeah.
And I remember one specific time where it was like that Leo Canine discussion
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. And someone was asking like, oh, like where to get this? And I was like, Horton sells it. And they were like, what? I was like, great people.
Yeah.
Like, go talk to them. That's where people need to like change that misconception of like it's not one company or die.
Yeah.
Like you can like other people's stuff. I support it. You support it.
Yeah.
It's all about like getting around and finding the thing that works best for you on your dog.
Yeah.
Like
It
that's
doesn't
the
mean
most
you're not gonna try
important.
to steal your customer.
100%.
I'm just not gonna try to steal your design. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but
same.
but
Doesn't mean you don't appreciate.
no, right, yeah, and it's been great, man. So
Yeah.
I definitely want to thank you for
Yeah.
being a friend of me because it's been
Absolutely.
very interesting and very fun.
Yeah.
So where can everybody find you?
Modernicon.us
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
or at Modern Icon
BBB.
K9 on Instagram.
Modern Icon K9 on Instagram.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
Facebook.
No, I think we do, yeah, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Probably
Probably
Modern
Modern
Icon
Icon.
K9. Sorry, Facebook folks. I apologize.
But all right, Lee,
Yeah, dude.
thank you so much. This was the Why So Serious podcast brought to you by Ray Allen Manufacturing. Your outro, sir.
No, you've been stealing it, man. It's all you. I'm not willing to-
If you have a working dog, go to where the working dogs go. If you have a pet, go to where the pets go. Thanks, guys.